Upon the motion, which was moved by Senator Osita Izunazo Imo West, which sought to address the constant sit-at-home order enforced by unknown gunmen in the southeast, the Senate yesterday condemned the Monday sit-at-home in the southeast geopolitical zone of Nigeria and asked the federal government to collaborate with the Finnish government and extradite a pro-Biafran agitator, Simon Ekpa, for prosecution. According to Izunazo, the sit-at-home civil disobedience actions in the southeast have led to the destruction of economic activities and immeasurable financial losses for businesses, workers, and the local economy. However, the Senate rejected a motion to release from detention the leader of the prescribed Indigenous People of Biafra IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu. To discuss yesterday's decision by the Senate, which condemned the Monday sit-at-home in the southeast geopolitical zone of Nigeria and asked the federal government to collaborate with the Finnish government to extradite a pro-Biafran agitator, Simon Ekpa, for prosecution, is Achike Chude, a political and social affairs commentator and deputy chairman of the Joint Action Front. Achike is also from the southeast of Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to the morning show, Mr. Chude.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. So what's your take on all of this?
Well, obviously something has to be done about the southeast. Something has to be done about the violence in the entire country, but in this case specifically, in the southeast, and it's about time. This crisis has gone on for far too long. Obviously, you have talked about your opener. The huge losses that the southeast is suffering economically, is bleeding, a lot of money, and something has to be done. And I think the attempt by the Senate is just one more attempt to try to resolve the contradictions that are going on in the southeast. And but again, we are seeing an upswing in the level of engagements of people, especially people and the elites in the southeast, with regards to the acts of violence there, and then they sit at home. Obviously, it cannot continue. The southeast has always been credited with being, people who, of course, have always been engaged in commerce and have done exceedingly very well. So when you stop, that activity, you are causing a lot of disruption within the economy of the southeast. But beyond that is the violence that has led to loss of lives, in that region of the country, and it is absolutely unsupportable. It's unwholesome, and there's something much more drastic needs to be done.
But there are specific issues.
Yeah.
The Senate said Simon Ekpa, who is enjoying the freedom in Finland, should be extradited. They said they would, once there is a Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs should explore all avenues to bring him back home so that he too can come and have a taste of what is going on here. Yeah. Secondly, the Senate was asked to look into the issue of Nnamdi Kanu. They said no, that's a matter before the court, and that would be prejudicial. So those are the two issues.
I did a piece some time ago. I titled it The Little Man in Finland. And obviously I was referring to Simon Ekpa. I think a lot of people are giving him more credit than he deserves. I think he's a general without troops. But I think he is benefiting from the crisis in the southeast, which to some extent he has also been part of. But the matter of the southeast has gone beyond even Nnamdi Kanu and Simon Ekpa. There are so many other players are involved in the violence in the southeast, non-state actors. And then recently, we must also not forget, that does not take away from the fact that Simon Ekpa has also been causing a problem from the south in the southeast, even with his statements, for instance. And you wonder why the Finnish government would continue to tolerate somebody who is within their territory and using social media to create panic and violence in another part of in his own country. And I think he speaks seriously about the responsibility of the Finnish government. But beyond that is the fact that, like I said, there are so many other actors that are active. Recently, in some of the intervention by the military and the police authorities in the southeast, each time they had some successes in their confrontations with some of these non-state actors. We have also discovered that the people operating in the Southeast, some of them are not Southeasterners. That is not to say that Southeasterners are not involved. So there is something, going on. Not too long ago, and I think it's important, I'm not sure whether the media adequately captured Asari Dokubo's statement the day he went to the presidency and was indicting the Nigerian military as being useless, and that he is the one that has been providing security services for the country. Now we know when Tom Polo was given a contract by the federal government to protect the country's pipelines. And of course, people had different opinions about that, whether it was okay or it was not okay. But there was at least a formal announcement to that, to that. We don't know at what point Asari Dokubo was engaged by the government, but what is important is the fact that he stated that he was active militarily in certain parts of the country, defending the Nigerian state. He mentioned Imo State, he mentioned Plateau State, Benue State, Abuja, and other parts of the country. Now, what kind of engagement was he doing? And I think that people, the authorities should look into that, because I know that the police and the army still have the mandate, especially the army when it comes to when the police fail in their duty to protect our territories. The army or the military has that responsibility. So who is financing or having this arrangement where Asari Dokubo and his armed militia are actively involved in violent acts, whether good or bad, in parts of this country? So perhaps, he also has a role to play there. That, like I said, does not excuse Simon Ekpa. And then with regards to Nnamdi Kanu, it went beyond, a judicial issue, If you look at the fact that even at best, even when the courts had made certain statements, given the, for the man to be released, the federal government has never really complied because it went beyond being, a legal issue. You can make it if it is, but it has always been a political issue, perhaps at the initial stage. But when a matter gets to a particular level, a degree, it moves from that, from the courts and becomes a political issue and should be handled politically. I think that is what needs to be done.
All right. So when you talk about the sit at home in the Southeast, yes, Simon Ekpa has been, you've called him a military man with no troops, or having no troops, but it has had some effect because
it has.
Traders have stayed at home. And according to Senator Ojus Okalu, about 7 trillion naira has been lost in the last few years when the sit at home has been enforced. The governors are calling for traders to go back to their shops or risk losing their, their shops being closed. But the bigger question is, what is being done to secure and assure the traders that it is safe to go back to open their shops? Because when you poll a number of them, they want to go back to selling. It doesn't make any sense to lose money every single Monday when business is already not in the best of climates currently. So I hear the senator saying, we condemn this, and that, Simon Ekpa should be extradited. But what are they saying in terms of the security architecture or security provisions in the Southeast to ensure that these people feel secure enough to go back to open their shops?
Yeah, I think one of the things we need to do is to find out how many security people are deployed to the governors for their protection. If they have about maybe 50 or 100 security people attached to them for their protection and safety, then for each of those businessmen, in the Southeast, they should deploy that number of people that you can be sure, because the governors feel absolutely safe with the kind of level of security they have. So if they can provide the same level of security to each of these shop owners, then of course those shop owners would have the confidence to go back. Otherwise, it becomes an irresponsible statement from the government. It becomes a statement that is devoid of knowledge of the reality of what is happening. Why would you force a businessman to go to his business and make money for himself and for his family? He doesn't need to be forced. It's a natural, predilection, proclivity for him to want to go out and make money because he's invested so much in it. And so he suffers the consequences of not being able to do that. So you don't need persuasion. You don't need to threaten somebody to go and make money, for himself. It simply shows, look, the government has a duty to protect the wealth, to provide for the welfare of the people and their security. So when government fails in that, and look, the reality, what is going on is a breakdown of the system. It's a breakdown, it's a weakening of the institutions of the state. So you have a situation where the government, whether at the federal or state level, can neither protect itself nor protect even the citizens. And that's what is going on. Because some other people are calling the shots and people are listening, not out of love, for the decision or the instruction that they have been given, but out of compulsion because they want to keep safe. So of what good, is a dead businessman when he goes to do his business and he's killed in the process? He's lost everything, and causes more problems for his family. So the government, it would appear that the governors, either they do not understand the dynamics that are playing out or they want to take a flight from reality. The reality of the people. You need to keep the people safe, and they are not able to do that. But I think if there's a shining light in the whole of this, it is the fact that for the very first time, a lot of the elites who had kept quiet, not because they were encouraging what was going on, but out of fear. You must also, remember that when the Niger Delta militancy started at a time, people who should talk, the elites, at a time, by the time those boys were under arms, they could no longer talk, they could no longer challenge them because they were the authority in that place. Same thing with Boko Haram. Don't forget when the members of National Assembly were accused years back of funding Boko Haram. And then they were consternated. They were very angry with that. They said they were going to take up, and maybe one of these, was it the news or Tell? I can't remember now. And they said they were going to take them up. And the journalists told them that they were ready, that they have their facts. Then they backed down and said, yes, our people are there. We're in Abuja. We need to protect them. So we're paying protection money. So that is what, began to happen in the Southeast. And the elites, were silenced for fear. But now they have realized that, look, you have to give something in order to get something. If you want security in the Southeast, you must be able to go beyond the threshold of fear and then confront the issue. And I think that was why Senator Ifeanyi Ubah the other time, and some people mobilized some people, and there was a protest against them. In Enugu, it is the same thing. I think it has gotten to a level where the people themselves are tired of this. They've been pushed for far too long, and they are beginning to react. But like I said, all of this is a manifestation of the failure of the state, of the Nigerian state, to keep its citizens, safe.
I mean, we're talking about the Southeast, we're talking about sit-at-homes, we're talking about the pain occasioned by the protest and the killing of people in Enugu. I'd like you to sound off on that. And also, what do you think the optics is like when the president of the country meets with, say, a non-state actor, an ex-militant like Asari Dokubo, and he said so much? What do you think?
Well, some of us, again, Emefiele was arrested by the DSS and put out of circulation for quite some time. And people were a bit jubilant, people who did not exactly like Emefiele, especially after the Naira, redesign, fiasco. And so they were happy to see him go. And we're expecting that major charges were brought against him. Don't forget that sometime last year, the DSS are charging for terrorism, and for financial crimes bordering on compromise of state security. So to now come up, under pressure from the court with a charge of displaying a shakabula, I think that's in local parlance, compared to what Asari Dokubo was seen, displaying a general purpose machine gun and then AK-47. And then, so people are looking at it and then they're saying, look, obviously, what the government is telling us is that there are two laws. There are two, kinds of vandals in this country. There are two kinds of criminals in this country. If you're a vandal that is pro-government, then we are okay with it. If you're a vandal that is anti-government, then we must do something about it, because that's what we're seeing. And then the man comes on air in full battle regalia. He denigrates the military, of which the president is commander-in-chief of the same military that he's denigrating, and then he makes threats against people. And not only that, in a few days ago, he was threatening a sitting governor, the governor of Rivers State. And then people are seeing it and they're asking, look, we thought things were going to get better in the country. And so you can only come up with that statement, or remember that statement somebody made, I can't remember who it is, that the more things appear to change, the more they remain the same. And it would appear that it's like a deja vu. It's like this is what we have seen in the past how many years, there seems to be no change. And so whatever, feeling of joy and happiness in the minds of some people, after this, the present administration was ushered in, regardless of how the election went, the reality is that some people were happy with transition. Even those people who were not happy with the way the election went began to accept certain realities that, look, there's a change of government. And if it works out well for this, whether we liked this person or not, it works out well for all of us. And then they begin to see this situation again. And it can only be reminded of, George Orwell's Animal Farm, Boxer, who started with all 2 legs bad, 4 legs good, and ended up with 2 legs good, 4 legs bad. It's a complete reversal of of the beginning, what it was. And I think, ultimately it is not, obviously, I mean, that was the whole thing, what the whole thing was all about. So it is not good for the optics. People expected something different. People expected something new. And you are taking us back again to what was, where the former president, and perhaps that was also part of the problem of credibility he had in his handling of security. People felt he was not neutral, that he was not being objective in handling the security situation. So when you see such things, you tell yourself, but we thought we had left that kind of a situation. But this is exactly what we are seeing. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the military. It's not good for the DSS, because it paints a completely different picture of the DSS, as a tool of, but people should also understand.
Okay. As we begin to wrap this up, in Enugu State,
yeah,
the governor the other day, Governor Mbah,
yeah,
said the state loses about 10 billion naira or more every Monday when there is sit at home. He then ordered that anybody should not sit at home. People should open their shops. Now, the people did not open their shops. On account of that, the state government sealed off 2 banks and 107 shops. Should any state government in all the 5 states in the Southeast force people to open their shops on Monday? What if they choose, they don't, on their own, they don't think they should?
I do not think that, seriously, that these politicians understand their job, and they do not understand what the rule of law entails. The people have a fundamental right to hold an opinion. They have a fundamental right to movement. So they can decide to go to work. Just like you said, they can decide to keep their businesses open. They don't even have to be under threat to close down their businesses. The only thing is that if you have to close down your businesses, there are legal or labor obligations. For instance, to your staff, to whoever. You can close down anytime you say, I don't want to do this business anymore, even if it is lucrative. You understand? So for a governor to come and say, look, if you don't go to work, if you don't go to run your business, I'm going to shut you down. It's unheard of. It's a scandal. It just simply tells you that, again, this military mentality, this culture from the military period to now is what we are still seeing. The heavy militarization of the Nigerian polity. And you will think that after about 23 years, 24 years of unbroken democracy, that would have made progress. But like I said, the more things seem to change, the more they remain the same.
Anyway, we would like to thank you very much, Achike Chude, for joining us on The Morning.